Chapter 2: The Five Elements and Man. The Five Elements and Man. For thousands of years, teachings were transmitted orally from teacher to disciple, originating in cosmic consciousness. This wisdom was intuitively received in the hearts of great sages. They perceived that the consciousness was energy manifested into the five basic principles or elements: ether, which is space; air, fire, water, and earth. Now, let's take a look at this diagram. The five elements. The first element we see at the top is space, also known as aether. Here we also see Akash. We have the image of the sky. When we look up into the night sky, we can see deep into outer space. And I think it's useful to remember that what we're looking up at is, in some sense, space. When we're looking at the sky, we see the stars, they're in space. And of course, this also applies to the daytime sky. We look up and we see our local star, sun, and occasionally the moon. And where's the sun? It's in space too, just like we are. So you might ask, why is this important? Well, as you'll see later on in this chapter, we begin to talk about man as a microcosm. When we think about the term microcosm, we see it has cosm or cosmo, and the macrocosm, if we are the microcosm, would be perhaps the universe, as we had discussed in chapter 1. I think it's good to make that connection. It's not some abstract concept that is totally unrelated to us. Space is out there, outer space, and even here. That's why, as you'll see later, there is a certain connection to our senses. Space is all around us, even within us. One could even argue that there is a vast amount of space between the nucleus of an atom and the electron. The distance relative to their size is pretty large. And I think it's important also to remember, as Dr. Laud pointed out in chapter 1, to keep an open mind. So, to recap, what we're talking about is this element of ether, space, spaciousness, akash. Going clockwise, next we have air, or vayu. In this image, we see windmills. What moves these windmills is the wind, the air moving, and there is the movement. Next, we have fire, tejas. Here we see an image of fire. Moving on, we have water, or jala, or jal. A little waterfall here. And lastly, we have earth, or prithvi. So these are five depictions of the five elements of Ayurveda.
To understand how Ayurveda works, you need to know its principles concerning the five elements: space, air, fire, water, and earth. Their interplay affects all of nature, including man. The elements are manifest in man in the form of three basic principles, the so-called doshas: Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Vata is composed of the elements space and air. In man, it's characterized by the attributes of lightness, creativity, and enthusiasm. Pitta consists of the elements fire and water. Pitta people are typically dynamic and ingenuous with a high metabolic rate. The Kapha type represents the interplay of the elements water and earth. Their thinking is clearly structured, they're stockily built with a rather more sluggish metabolism. According to Ayurveda, if a person's doshas become imbalanced, this causes illnesses. These can be healed by restoring the natural balance of the doshas.
Aether is the first of the five elements to appear. Now, as space, where does all the other stuff that we know exist? Our Earth, the fire, the water, the air, all that we have, we know now that in space is where we exist. And so it makes sense as kind of a container almost, or perhaps a medium or canvas for the other elements. However, let's stick to the text. The movements of ether created the air element. Air is ether in action. Ether manifested into the four elements of air, fire, water, and earth. From earth, all organic living bodies, including those in the vegetable kingdom such as herbs and grains, and those in the animal kingdom including man, are created. Water provides the classic. The solid state of water, ice, is a manifestation of the earth principle. Latent heat, or fire, in the ice liquefies it, manifesting the water principle, and then, eventually, it turns into steam, expressing the air principle. Steam disappears into ether, or space. Man as microcosm. Man is a microcosm of nature, and so the five basic elements also exist within each individual. Now, I just want to add that earlier on the slide where I mentioned ether, I used the term universe instead of nature. The universe and nature are two different words. However, they're very, very closely tied, and I just wanted to bring your attention to that as well as the difference. Perhaps nature may have been a better term to use earlier, but since they are so closely tied, some might even argue they are the same. Anyway, in the human body are many spaces which are manifestations of the ether element, for example, mouth, nose, gastrointestinal tract, respiratory tract, abdomen, capillaries, lymphatics, tissues, and cells. Man is microcosm. Air. Air is the second cosmic element, the element of movement. Within the human body, air manifests in the movements of muscles, expansion and contraction of lungs, and pulsations of the heart. Even cells are seen to move. Cells could be considered as micro to our macro. We are micro to the macro of nature. Man is microcosm. Fire. The third element is fire. In the solar system, there is the sun as the main source of heat and light. In the human body, the source of fire is the metabolism. The fire works in the digestive system and in the gray matter of brain cells. Fire manifests as intelligence. Fire also activates the retina, which perceives light. Thus, the body temperature, digestion, the thinking process, and vision are all functions of bodily fire. All metabolism and enzyme systems are controlled by the element. Man as microcosm. Water. Water is the fourth important element in the body. It manifests in the secretions of the digestive juices and the salivary glands, in the mucous membranes, and in plasma and cytoplasm. Because this element is so vital, it is called the water of life. Water is vital to the functioning of other systems, organs, and tissues. For example, the dehydration resulting from diarrhea and vomiting must be treated immediately to protect the patient's life. Man as microcosm. Earth. Earth is the fifth and last element of the cosmos present in the microcosm. Earth holds all living and non-living substances to its solid surface. In the body, the solid structures, bones, cartilage, nails, muscles, tendons, skin, and hair are derived from Earth. The senses. The five elements manifest in the functioning of the five senses of man, as well as in certain functions of his physiology. Thus, the five elements are directly related to man's ability to perceive the external environment in which he lives. The basic elements, ether, air, fire, water, and earth, are related to hearing, touch, vision, taste, and smell, respectively. Lastly, we have Table 1 from the book. This table connects the five elements, the organs of the senses, and their actions. So, we have element, senses, sense organ, action, and organ of action. For example, ether, or space, we have hearing as the sense. The sense organ, what we hear with, is the ear. What is action? It is speech. And the organ of action for speech is the tongue, the vocal cords, folds, and the mouth. Uh, Also, we have air, which the sense for air is touch. The sense organ is the skin. The action is holding because the organ of action is the hand. Uh, Next, we have fire, which the sense is seeing, which we do with the eyes, which is the sense organ. The action is walking, which the organ of action is the feet. Water is the element next. That sense is taste. The sense organ is the tongue. The action is procreation. And the organ of action is the genitals. Last element is earth. The senses is smell. The sense organ is nose, what we use to smell. The action is excretion. And the organ of action is the anus. So let's just take some time and observe this chart and see how the patterns are connected.